Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into the unfolding mystery of the 2026 Ghost Ship. Seriously, this story feels like something pulled straight out of a Hollywood thriller, but it is entirely 100% real. We're going to decode the science, the history, and the exact timeline of a silent threat that suddenly captured the entire world's attention. Section 1. The Ghost Cruise Ship, a Deadly Voyage. Imagine heading out on a dream vacation, only to have it turn into an unexplained, deadly nightmare at sea. Picture this. On April 1st, 2026, a cruise ship set sail from Ushuaia, Argentina. We've got about 150 passengers and crew from 23 different countries. For the first few days, everything is perfect. People are mingling, enjoying the parties, completely unaware of what is quietly spreading among them. But then, just 5 days into the trip, a 70-year-old Dutch passenger comes down with a mysterious fever, a headache, and mild diarrhea. He goes to the ship's doctor, but his condition rapidly deteriorates. Soon, he can't breathe at all, and by April 11th, he tragically passes away right there on the ship. Nobody knows why. So, the vacation just continues. Then on April 24th, the ship docks at St. Helena, where his grieving wife disembarks with his body. She travels to South Africa, but right as she's about to board a flight home to Amsterdam, she collapses at the airport. She dies on April 26th. Back on the ship, the nightmare is spreading. A German woman falls ill on April 28th and dies by May 2nd. It was only at this point that the World Health Organization was finally alerted, and tests were run.
Section 2. What is Hantavirus? A 70-year-old threat.
So when the diagnosis finally came back, it wasn't some newly discovered superbug. It was Hantavirus. This is a terrifying family of viruses carried by rodents that scientists have actually known about for 70 years. And when you break it down, there are essentially two horrific variants of this disease. On one side, you have hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome, or HFRS, which primarily strikes in Asia and Europe. This variant aggressively attacks the kidneys, leading to failure and massive internal bleeding. On the flip side, we have hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, or HPS, which is found in North and South America. This is exactly what we saw on that cruise ship. HPS causes the lungs to rapidly fill with fluid, basically leading to death by suffocation. And the severity here is absolute. We are looking at up to a 50% mortality rate. 50%. Plus, there are 0 FDA or WHO-approved vaccines and absolutely no proven antiviral treatments. Think about that for a second. Even with all of our incredible modern medical advancements, if you get infected, doctors can really only provide supportive care to try and ease your symptoms. Ultimately, it's entirely up to your own immune system to fight off a virus that kills half the people it infects.
Section 3. A history of outbreaks. Tracing the virus.
To understand this, we have to look back. This virus first baffled doctors during the 1950 Korean War, when it struck 3,000 American soldiers with a really mysterious illness featuring fever, vomiting, and kidney failure. It left a 15% mortality rate in its wake, and it took nearly 30 years before a South Korean virologist finally traced it back to rodents. Fast forward a few decades, and we saw it again during the 1993 Navajo tribe outbreak in the U.S. Young, perfectly healthy people were suddenly dying from fluid in their lungs, with a shocking initial mortality rate of 75%. Scientists were completely stumped. That is, until they listened to the oral history of the Navajo elders. The elders explained that extreme weather events, like El Niño, brought heavy rains, which caused a massive harvest of piñon pine nuts. That huge abundance of food caused the mouse population to absolutely explode, and, well, with more mice came a massive spike in the virus. And it's a global issue. Take India, for example. Between 2005 and 2008, research revealed that 4% of the general population actually had hantavirus antibodies. This showed the virus was silently infecting people living close to rats. For a long time, scientists didn't even think hantavirus was an issue in India, but a study in Tamil Nadu's Vellore district found confirmed cases among chronic kidney disease patients, warehouse workers, and the Irula tribe, who traditionally catch rats. This is a massive takeaway. It proved the virus doesn't just cause these big, headline-grabbing outbreaks. It quietly spreads wherever humans and rodents live in close proximity.
Section 4. The Andes strain twist, human-to-human spread.
Now here is the crucial twist. Up until a 1996 outbreak in southern Argentina, the golden rule of hantavirus was that it only jumped from rodents to humans. It was considered basically impossible for one infected human to pass it to another. But the terrifying introduction of the Andes strain shattered that rule completely. It proved that, unlike the rest of the virus family, this specific variant could spread directly between humans through close contact and bodily fluids. Documented during that 1996 Argentine outbreak, the Andes virus remains the only known strain in the entire Hantavirus family capable of human-to-human transmission. Now, it generally requires sharing a bed, providing very close physical care, or being exposed to bodily fluids over a prolonged period. They even found that certain infected individuals acted as superspreaders.
Section 5. Tracing the cruise outbreak. The cruise mystery.
So, armed with this knowledge of the Andes strain, investigators were finally able to trace the pathogen's tragic path onto our stranded 2026 cruise ship. Because the cruise departed from Ushuaia, Argentina, which is the exact geographical region where the Andes strain circulates, and because passengers were clearly infecting one another, the puzzle pieces finally clicked together. By walking through these fateful steps, we can see exactly how the Dutch couple carried the virus aboard. In March 2026, right before boarding, the 70-year-old passenger and his wife went on a birdwatching tour in Ushuaia. During this tour, they somehow ended up near a landfill just teeming with rats. And here is the massive stroke of bad luck. The Andes strain only has a tiny transmission window of about 1 day at the very beginning of the illness. If their cruise had departed just 2 or 3 days later, they likely wouldn't have been contagious when they boarded. But they boarded immediately, bringing the human-to-human Andes strain directly into the enclosed, tight environment of the ship. After being rejected by Cape Verde, the ship finally docked in Spain's Canary Islands on May 10th. This left the entire world anxiously watching the quarantined crew and hospitalized passengers. By the time they reached Tenerife, the toll was incredibly severe. 10 total cases, 3 confirmed dead, and the remaining patients had to be medically evacuated to ICUs in South Africa, the Netherlands, and Switzerland. 2 Indian crew members were also taken to the Netherlands for quarantine, though thankfully they showed no symptoms. The world's media was in an absolute frenzy at this point, asking one huge question. Section 6, the real pandemic risk. Is it the next COVID? With all these global headlines causing panic, we really need to objectively evaluate if this horrific incident is actually the spark of the next worldwide pandemic. I mean, when a cruise ship is stranded with a highly lethal virus, it's totally natural for our minds to flash back to the early days of recent global lockdowns, right? But the empirical data clearly shows why the WHO considers the global risk to be very low. Unlike COVID or the flu, hantavirus does not transmit through the air across a crowded room. You don't need a 14-day quarantine if an infected person doesn't have extremely close physical contact with someone during that crucial tiny 1-day early window. The chain of transmission is broken. In fact, to date, there has never been a documented human-to-human case of this strain in Europe or Asia. But listen, despite the low pandemic risk, a 50% mortality rate, coupled with impending El Niño weather patterns, means we have to take prevention seriously. Remember that Navajo outbreak? With major El Niño events increasing global rainfall, rodent populations can just explode. So the best defense here is practical, everyday hygiene. Seal up any gaps in your homes. If you're cleaning out a dusty, abandoned storage room or warehouse, throw on an N95 mask and some gloves. Dispose of your garbage properly to avoid attracting mice. And always, always be extremely cautious if you spot rodent droppings. This explainer really proves that when we understand the science, we can defeat fear with proactive prevention. This virus has lived quietly alongside us for decades. It usually only makes the news during tragic, sudden outbreaks, like the ghost cruise ship of 2026. But now that you understand the mechanics of the Andes strain, its history, and exactly how it spreads, you're armed with the best tools available: awareness and prevention. So I'll leave you with this thought. In a world full of microscopic mysteries, isn't it empowering to know that something as simple as sealing a crack in your wall could be your ultimate shield? Keep questioning, keep exploring, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.